If you follow me on any of my other socials, it's no surprise that Let God Sort 'Em Out is my favorite album of 2025. It is an ode to hip hop. I have 2 vinyls for God's sakes, and on top of that, it has some amazing thematics and really cements Clipse as one of the greatest hip hop duos to ever do it, especially behind Pharrell production. And I would even argue it cements Pharrell Williams as a top 5, even top 3 hip hop producer of all time. But I'm not here to review the album. We already got the 10 out of 10 stamp of approval from Anthony Fantano himself. Today, I'm actually here to talk about why Let God Sort 'Em Out was needed, and I want to make a very, very big emphasis on the word needed, not desired, not wanted, and not fantasized about, but needed in 2025. We now know, of course, in hindsight, that this album was delayed in 2024 due to, well, a certain beef that was happening, and of course that spectacle when it was going on at the time. And I was very devastated about that because I've been waiting on this album. Of course, I'm still waiting on the Don't Be Dumb album. Erykah Badu's album, I actually heard the rumors about that with Alchemist at the time. So there was just a lot of stuff that was just being delayed, and I was getting irritated because I was like, dang it, hip hop, what are we doing? We're having a great moment in history talking about the beef, and then we could have had these awesome albums. Why are these being delayed so bad? I'm actually very happy the album got delayed because it really gave its chance to have its own shine. And also, I don't know how the impact would have been coming out after the summer of the beef, and we would have just heard those more, oh, these are the rap Avengers, and the boy done revived him from being a pastor, he's now a rapper again, and Pharrell Williams has to make beats because he can't sell Louis Vuitton. You get the point. We would have heard all of that, and it just would have pissed me off, and we would have missed out on the art. Plus, the delay gave the album a chance to have an intentional rollout with no other distractions. Like, this is where this album becomes culturally appropriate because what we see is they have a better rollout, more media outlets and publications. So much was put into the intentionality of this album where we can actually absorb the intentionality and appreciate the art. Even songs like POV weren't supposed to be on the album because Pusha didn't like how he sounded sonically, and it took his brother Tyler and Pharrell convincing him that it was an amazing song, and that's why we even have it on the album today. I love that this delay happened because it just gave us more intentionality. But that same intentionality and craftsmanship is why I say this album was needed in big 2025 instead of 2024, where it could have been a distraction. And I'm going to take a short moment to talk about the beef, but just follow me because this has to do with this album as well. As amazing as the beef was, and I literally enjoyed every bit of the beef, I will say the backlash of the beef and the damage that's been done is that there has been a life mission on both sides of the beef for people to say, oh, I'm not going to like that artist, or I'm going to say I'm not going to listen to this artist, or this artist is boring, or this artist makes trash music. It has been the worst, and there's been the dumbest of arguments online. I can include myself in that same conversation. So for me, the beef did a lot of good because it kind of reset hip hop, in my humble opinion, because it gave us a chance to stop hearing the Great Sewers album every year. And he's been putting out an album every year since 2015 until 2023. Obviously, he skipped 24. We know why. And like it or not, he is a lot of people's first introduction into the genre of hip hop at large. And that's not something I can really do. He is literally a pop star. He's a megastar. And because of that, people associate his voice, his cadence, his vocalization, everything about him as the only form of hip hop, and everything else is non-existent. And that's why you get people having these arguments like he made such and such Atlanta artist, or he made such and so. Like, that's why you get those arguments. They associate his form of hip hop as the only form of hip hop, and everything else follows behind. However, the beef gave the Great Sewer a chance to reset, maybe some self-reflection or self-pity, depending on who you're asking, and he's actually taken a break for roughly a year. He still put out a collab album, but I'll say he took a break, and it gave listeners a chance to hear other artists that are out there and appreciate their art forms. So yeah, you could technically thank Drake for this. Insert Let God Sort 'Em Out, an album that truly shows that growing in age doesn't mean you have to be out of touch. And I made a short about this some time ago, and I'll upload it here as well, but it's really about perfecting staying in your lane. And let me be very clear, staying in your lane does not necessarily mean that you don't grow or that you don't do anything different, because a lot of people are arguing that, hey, Pusha's just going to talk about selling snow and Miles is going to do the same thing. What's there to be excited about? And to some degree, you're right about that. But I would say they grew in maturity of their penmanship, of the style of music they have, and even the way they talk about different aspects and ideas. Think about it like if you're at your same job for 10 years and that you actually got a promotion. Even though you didn't make like a giant move, like you switched jobs or you went to another state or insert some new life change that you had, you still leveled up in your job. You still became something more inside of the craft that you're at. And that's what Let God Sort 'Em Out is. It's literally leveling up your craft and staying in your lane. And that's what they do throughout this. And so does Pharrell. I can't forget that Pharrell literally also leveled up here. So yeah, you still get snow bars. You still get that classic Clipse feel. You still get braggadocious bravado from Pusha. You still get like that humbleness, but still griminess that's underneath Malice's tone. But you also get songs like The Birds Don't Sing, which the whole song being about their parents that have passed. This is a completely different direction to start off an album about dudes who talk about selling blow. But to circle back to my analogy about working at your job for 10 years, these guys are older. Like, they're both late 40s, early 50s. Like, they're not young cats in the game no more. But what we're seeing is that you're still able to create amazing art at an older age and not be out of touch. And this right here, I think, is very important for not just older rappers, but rappers who've also fell off. We're literally just seeing Clipse do a masterclass on staying in your own lane. And we also saw Nas do this. We even saw Chance the Rapper do it by coming back with his own album. But a lot of rappers sometimes think that gaining age or falling off is the end of your career. And it's not, clearly. Nas was much older when he dropped King Disease in the Magic series with Hit Boy and still came out with a lot of awards. Clipse is old, as we know right now, and I believe they're going to take home a lot of awards this upcoming year. And of course, Chance the Rapper fell off with The Big Day, which is a terrible album, but he still came back and made some amazing art. So falling off or gaining age is not going to be the thing that destroys or derails your career. It's the art, and that's what we're seeing right now. This was proven just now. If you're practicing your craft and creating high caliber art, people will be attracted to it. People will still listen to it. Your core fan base will always be there, but you will also attract new listeners. I want to make this very clear. This is my first full-length Clipse project. As much as it might seem like, oh, I'm probably a hip-hop hero, this is my first time listening to a full-length Clipse project, and I loved it. I literally had to go in their back discography to listen to all their catalog. This album shows that art trumps the media hype or the media youngness or whatever you want to call it. Like, it trumps all of that if you are willing to have good art and intentionality about why you create something. But that leads me to my final point of why this album was needed in 2025. A lot of people aren't making good art, and a lot of artists are upset that they're not getting critical acclaim. And it's because the art sucks. And maybe the art doesn't suck, at least your intentionality behind said art sucks. I want to shout out Beamer because he really pointed this out first, but the intentionality behind the media outlets and publications that Clipse was doing for this album rollout showcased the intentionality and why it's okay to ask for feedback or even criticism when it comes to rolling out a project. I personally feel like that's a lost art because a lot of people are used to hearing their echo chambers, especially in today's age with the internet where you have access to your fandom, access to your core fan base, and that's awesome, but you end up getting echo chambers of yes men, of people saying we want your project and this sounds fantastic, and it could be absolute dog water. Pusha was even on record saying he wanted people like Anthony Fantano to review the album, not out of like trying to scare him and to give him a 10, but I feel like he wanted to see, hey, did I do well? Do you like this project? I want y'all to talk back that this is about hip hop and hip hop discourse. Like, talk about the music. And I would argue that listening to people only in your streams, discords, or your channels or communities on these apps and social media becomes a problem because you only hear yes men, and the music might not necessarily be bad, but it's not necessarily critically acclaimed, and you didn't talk to any critics or anybody in the genre of your choosing. And what ends up happening is when you talk about the VMAs or the Grammys, the BET Awards, whatever, and you don't get picked for an award, you're like, they don't really like my stuff and they're always hating on me. And it's like, no, you didn't talk to them at all. A great example of this is Chris Brown. Now, I am not the biggest Chris Brown fan. I want to admit that publicly, but my friends are stans of the man. They will go to his concerts and his tour pretty much every year. We all know about the VIP, photo op thing. You get the point. The man's a megastar, and I will never ever say he doesn't have talent because Lord knows the man is talented. He's just not my preference. However, every year, Chris Brown takes the time to complain on social media or the internet that people are not focusing on his art and his music. People are not giving him critical acclaim. He's not going to these award shows because they just are against him, usually because of his past or maybe something he's wandered into. However, I would argue that's not necessarily fully the case, Chris. It's really because you have 40 songs on the album, and also he doesn't necessarily do media publications. Now, I want to be clear, some of these media publications do just want to throw some shade or some slander at artists such as Chris Brown. And if he did come onto their show, they would just say, oh, why did you do this? Or why did you do that? And does he want to answer that question anymore? Probably not. So I do want to give credit where credit's due. However, doing no media outlets or publications, especially those that are centered around R&B and pop, doesn't necessarily help you. Like, Chris Brown actually did a stream with Kai Cenat, which is fine, but from my understanding, it really wasn't about the music. It was really just a stream session. But I would argue streamers like Kai Cenat although he's a giant influence, does not reflect critical acclaim or feedback towards your art or your art form. To be honest with you, I don't believe it really gives you much towards your art form. I think he is more of a media outlet. It's going to show your personality, and that's the best you're going to get from him, is just showcasing a moment in time that people can look and say, hey, I like that artist and I understand him more, kind of creating more of a parasocial relationship, but not necessarily a better relationship with your art. And after a quick Google search, the most recent interviews that Chris Brown really has is the sit down with Nori on his podcast, and of course the sit down with Shannon Sharp, which is not necessarily about your music either, but I mean, it's still a sit down, and that wasn't too long ago. But the Nori interview was 3 years ago. And yet again, this is not about fandoms or bigger audiences, because Chris Brown sells out his concerts every time. He puts on a great show. But at the same time, we're talking about trying to get critical acclaim, something that Chris Brown has made mention that he would actually like. You might want to do these publications and these outlets to actually talk about the art that you're creating, not only relying on your own social media ability. Because like his Virginia OGs, Clipse actually took the time to go to different media outlets to talk about their art constantly, and we're still talking about their art. They are the hip hop conversation of the year. They had such an intentionality going to different hip hop and media outlets to talk about their art and the music. And I think that is huge. They didn't necessarily settle with going where people just to give them pats on the back. Of course, people appreciated their art when they got there, but they made sure that it was like, hey, I want to hear your feedback. I want to hear your criticism, because if there is one, I'm going to take it on the chin because I want to make better art next time. The reason why Let God Sort Him Out was a need for this year was because it showed us that, number one, intentionality still matters. Your artwork still matters. And it's okay to stay in your lane and grow in your craft and your penmanship. You don't got to switch the model every time you get out there. You can actually just grow in the space that you're in and really perfect your craft. So 2025 is a year of Let God Sort Him Out because they made sure it was culturally appropriate. My name is Isaiah Barlow. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification for all my new videos. This is The Turntable.